Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to our many participants in 5 continents and a number of different time zones. The first webinar organized by the International Committee of Memorial Museums for the Remembrance of the Victims of Public Crimes, part of the International Council of Museums. We're grateful for this response to our invitation, and we want to spend an hour together on the theme of memorial museums in the time of COVID-19, reflection, response, and creative strategies for the future. I'm Cornelis Spaans with IC Memo, and I'm your moderator. Our apologies, first of all, for not being able to offer interpretation of this meeting, so everything will have to be said and done in the English language. We're all affected by this deadly virus that originates from Wuhan in China, but all to varying degrees. It rather depends on where you are in the world and whether you have the means to defend yourself against this virus, whether you're dealing with an unpleasant inconvenience that will pass, or with a deadly menace to yourself and your loved ones. And in the latter case, one is reminded of the plight of the Yazidi victims of genocide by the Islamic State, currently in a dreadful situation and with few defenses against this virus. As memorial museums who commemorate victims of genocides and similar atrocities, we're sensitive to how social strain may develop into conflict and confrontational societies. And a threat like this may bring people together for a while, but it may also help to create an environment in which people feel scared and abandoned, and in which politicians and opaque bureaucracies of different shapes and sizes instrument this virus threat for their purpose. In the last few months, we see democracies and not so democracies establish political and economic straitjackets through the restriction of civil liberties and freedom and through information adjustment without so much as a whisper. It's all for a good cause, we know, but we as memorials are aware of how these things start and perhaps end. Not necessarily with a loud bang and boots on the streets, but almost as a matter of course. We see in some countries an age discrimination emerge against the elderly that in its matter-of-factness quite closely resembles dictatorships of the past that considered certain groups and segments of society as surplus to requirements. We're all affected, professionally and personally. We want to use this opportunity as memorial museum professionals to get together and benefit from each other's thoughts. We've asked 4 speakers from different parts of the world, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Slovenia, the Netherlands, to present their thoughts. We've asked 2 of them to describe how they manage the crisis, and 2 whose museums have come up with some new approaches. We have about 1 hour and 5 speakers. That means that we'll have about 15 minutes at the end of the session for questions and answers. With so many participants, the system will not be able to handle questions asked through our microphones. So please ask your question using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. And you can do that while the speakers are speaking. You don't have to wait until they have concluded. And please include your name and email. The whole webinar will be available online in streaming in a few days. So please keep an eye on our website and Facebook. Many museums have already had to close as part of national lockdowns. A number of them now offer virtual tours of their collections. All are struggling and looking for creative solutions. And that's why we turn to our speakers. And first of all, on the effects of COVID-19 on museums around the world, it's a great pleasure to introduce Louisa Onuoha, who is with the National Commission for Museums and Monuments of Nigeria. And she is talking to us direct from Lagos. Louisa, thank you for joining us, and you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to us. Thank you, Cornelis, for the introduction. My presentation is going to be on the situation of COVID-19 in Nigeria and the place where Nigeria is and how it is affecting our museums. Next slide, please. Next, please. Thank you. Yes, like everyone else all around the globe, Nigeria is presently witnessing, lockdowns, physical distancing, all in a bid to stay safe, from the pandemic. We're currently having facing challenging times in Nigeria. Major states such as Lagos and Abuja have been on lockdown, while some other states have been experiencing intermittent lockdowns. And there's been another 2 weeks border closure. Major airports and seaports have been on complete lockdown too, except, of course, for cargoes carrying essentials. All these is in a bid to restrict interstate movement, inter and intrastate movements of people. And what does this mean for the museum? Automatically, it means that our museums in Nigeria are all on lockdown. The gates are closed to visitors. And that is where we are in Nigeria. Next slide, please. As of today, COVID-19 statistics reads 1,273 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 239 discharge cases, and 40 deaths. Now, next slide. How is the museum faring at this time? Museums in Nigeria were not prepared for the present situation, that's the truth. And working from home and utilizing online resources seems to be the only available means. That also is difficult for Nigeria museums. Therefore, we had to key into the educational opportunities created by the Lagos state government, where TV channels and radio stations are asked to present programs for children, school children, certain TV channels and certain radio stations. So we have keyed into this opportunity because 70% of our visitors actually are school-going children. So we have keyed into this, trying to educate these children using these platforms created by the Lagos state government. Next slide, please. Now, there are certain challenges restricting us, the museums in Nigeria. And when I talk about museums in Nigeria, I speak for the NCMM, the National Commission for Museums and Monuments, which is the federal government body. So there are certain challenges restricting us from online technology. We have irregular power supply in Nigeria. The remote areas do not even have power supply. Some of them do not have power at all. Where there is power, we have no internet access or poor internet access. There's high bandwidth costs, and we need required training and non-availability of seamless access to the internet, among several other things. Next slide, please. Now, what lessons do we have we learned for a post-COVID era? The lessons abound. One of them is the creation of policies that will bring about operational freedom for museums. Museums need freedom. We need for museums to be included in national budgets, with funding, good funding as research and educational institutions, which is what they are. Then currently ICOM is ICOM is rewriting the definition of museums. And I think they should, at this point too, try to put into perspective emergencies such as this, as they do this redefinition of museums. Next slide, please. There's a major event for IC Memo and ICOM Nigeria for this year. We're supposed to open an exhibition in Lagos on the 17th of May. But because of the pandemic, there's going to be we've proposed for a shift in date. And where that fails, we have decided we'll then go virtual. Please visit the www.afwr.net. That's the website for the project, and then you can get all the other details. Next slide, please. Well, we pray for a ray of hope. We look forward for a ray of hope. We're testing and sampling centers in every 20 local governments in Lagos State, a telemed toll-free line for non-COVID consultations within the state, and 12 functional testing laboratories with the capacity to test at least 1,500 people per day. We hope for the best for Nigeria and for the whole world. Next slide. Thank you everyone for listening, and please stay safe.
Thank you very much, Louisa. And of course, to the participants in this webinar, if you have a question, please insert that into the question and answer at the bottom of the screen. The next speaker will be Morfidul Haq, who is the founder and director of the Liberation War Museum in Bangladesh, and he's presenting direct from Dhaka. Thank you for joining us, Morfidul, and you have the floor.
Good day for everyone. First of all, I would like to give you a brief about the Liberation War Museum and the present situation. Liberation War Museum was established in 1996 as a citizen's effort which earned great support from the community that made it a people's museum. The journey began in a small way at a rented two-story colonial era building, and we have grown ever since. In 2017, the museum moved to its permanent abode with wide space and supportive facilities. The complex was built with public donation and government support. We want to dedicate our space and facilities for the national, regional, and global efforts of not to forget the past and say never again to mass atrocities. The COVID-19 attack came as a sudden shock, both for our nation and our museum. Although we heard the footsteps, but were not prepared for a catastrophe of such massive scale. The first case in Bangladesh was detected in early March, and government gradually introduced protective measures including social distancing, home quarantine, closure of educational institutions and museums, area-wise lockdown, and very quickly declared national lockdown since the third week of March. Now it is more than a month that the nation is under complete lockdown. Spread of coronavirus has not yet reached its peak in Bangladesh. So far, we have 6,000 detected cases with 160 deaths. The number of affected persons appears to be low because of the low rate of testing. We have great shortage of testing kits and PCR labs. The national health system is meager in terms of magnitude of the crisis. Nevertheless, the nation is struggling to meet the challenge of the time, and a great human bondage among different segments of society is our newfound strength. The looming economic crisis is most worrisome for us. Economically and socially, we were doing well, and annually with about 8% growth rate. But the economy is very much dependent on global market. About 10 million expatriate workers and 5 million garment workforce form the backbone of our economy and foreign exchange earning. The loss in growth will mean loss of opportunity for millions of our people, and everybody will be sufferer. We at the museum were also unprepared. Initially, we were more concerned with the safety of our staff and museum collection. With the sudden introduction of complete lockdown, our staff members got scattered and we lost contact with most of them. Our presence in the digital space is very little. We have neglected the digital communication opportunities and do not have much online activity like virtual museum or online teaching, etc. But with the COVID-19 attack, the doors of the museum were suddenly shut and all our program and festivities cancelled. We lost contact with our network teachers, volunteers, associates, and of course, visitors. Most painful was loss of our contact with the Rohingya victims in the camps. With Asia Justice and Rights, Azhar, we are engaged in work to empower the victim women. 15 March was the last day for the foreign and local non-essential staff to work in the camp. The victim women bid farewell to the Azhar LWM activists in a very touchy way. Fortunately, that was also the day when I took French intellectual and activist Bernard Henry Levy to the camp. Last week, he published a long article in Paris Match about the visit, which is commendable. Life in refugee camp is always difficult, and especially with 1 million Rohingya refugees crammed in 34 camps. But the Bangladesh administration, with the help of international agencies, have organized the support system very well. Now they have focused strongly on protection of Rohingya refugees from COVID contamination. The camps are closed for all except essential service providers like those supervising food supply, health, etc. The awareness program, sanitization, masks, etc. has been introduced. Local hospitals are getting prepared for COVID patients. In spite of the preparedness, there are a shortage of PPE, ventilator, etc. In this scenario, a small gesture has inspired us much. Some of the victim women are now sewing masks to be distributed free in the camps. LWM staff members are creating fund by themselves to buy few sewing machines for the victims. The Liberation War Museum is now regrouping itself in the new situation. We have created a chat group for our staff members, which became a window for them to release tension. We have conducted Zoom meeting for our researchers with their mentors. The 8th International Docu Film Festival had to be postponed in the last hour. Now, after several Zoom meetings, it has been decided to hold workshop and pitching session with mentors online from 20th April to G20. We are exploring the possibility of organizing the festival online. While facing the grave situation, we learned the importance of digital communication in all its form. We need to provide special attention on taking advantage of digital communication, learn how other memorial museums are doing this, and how we can be benefited by that experience. We receive new strength from the global connectivity. Our links with ICMEMO, Azhar, International Coalition of Sites of Conscience, Global Alliance Against Mass Atrocity Crime, International Association of Genocide Scholars, and other organizations and persons has given us rich dividend. This has broadened our perspective and gave us the strength to work together. Global crisis has given rise to global solidarity. The crisis brought forward the fundamental questions of existence, inequality, destruction of environment, harmony with human community, as well as between nature and human habitat. We do not know what the future holds for us, but we are sure to enter into a new and much more difficult world where we need to build a global solidarity to be more responsible, more profound in our thinking and collaborative acts. We need to redefine memorialization based on new reality. Let us do this together. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mojito. Thank you very much. And as I said, if you have questions for Mojito, please insert them in the question and answer button. Then our next speaker was asked to speak about creative and alternative means to reach our audience. That's the audience of museums, of memorial museums. So it's a pleasure to introduce Kaja Sirok, who is director of the National Museum of Contemporary History in Ljubljana, Slovenia. Kaja, thank you for joining us, and you have the floor.
Thank you, and hello to everyone who is listening to us. When we were deciding to do the webinar, I was discussing with other colleagues what are the new activities that our museum is producing in the last month and a half. We closed the museum on Friday 13, which is in from our believers a black day, the Black Friday. So actually what it happened that we had a call and we needed to shut down the museum and all the activities. But we decided very quickly that we didn't want it to be closed. We really wanted to open. If the doors were closed, we decided to open the windows. So the opening window was the virtual world that we are all in. So, and this is the social activities that our museums can do on its webpage, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. So we are using all the tools that we can use in order to be much more accessible, visible, and to be in the daily interaction with all our users, visitors, so people who are actually having a contact with the museum. So we shifted to the online activities, and we are really doing our best to make it simple and to make it usable for everyone. The first thing that we decided to do is to help the schools. Actually, also the schools were locked down in the same period. And of course, the teachers need to prepare their everyday school programs. And after a while, I think already in the first week, they started to write to us and ask us, do you have anything that we can use? So can you help us with this and this? So we started to build our own archive of educational tools for teachers and for the pupils to use while they are discussing historical topics. And especially when there were certain celebrations, especially the national one, we did like a 5 to 10 minutes lesson that it's approachable on our webpage. So we called that part, we completely readapt our webpage, and it's called School at Home. And actually everyone can find its own topic there. The other topic that we started to work on was Museum at Home, and we really wanted to be close to the visitors. So what we started to do, we increase all our digital efforts and find new ways to capture, store, and provide access to our collections online. The idea was also to start to work with the visitors on new activities. We are the museum of the 20th century, so we decided to actively involve the visitors in becoming narrators of the pandemic and to help us create a new collection on visible material. So already in the first week of the isolation, we started a competition called Life During the Coronavirus. And we asked the audience to send us comics to document their daily lives. And just wait here a moment, and I will show you what we got. Okay. Since we are already in the 6th week of isolation, we have more than 300 comics. They are mostly children discussing their daily life, and actually they were our target group, because the children and the youngers are the one who can be seen as the vulnerable group. They don't have a voice. Also, some things are happening to them. We don't know for sure how this isolation is going to affect them. So actually, we ask them, instead of narrating, to show us through their drawings what they are doing, how they are behaving, what kind of activities they are doing in their daily life. And they will be the visitors of tomorrow. So maybe in a year or in 10 years, when they are going to come back as teenagers, they will see their lives from a completely different perspective. Another thing that we also started was another activity called Life in the Period of the Coronavirus. And let me see if I can show you. What we wanted to show here is to ask people to send us their thoughts, pictures, ideas on how they are feeling and what kind of things are unable or are able to do now when they are locked down and need to be at home. So what you see here was posted on Saturday, and it's called The Touch from the Other Side. It's a night watch. It's a specialist of infectology. And this is a photo that she did some weeks ago. And while cleaning her phone, she saw the picture that she did. So actually, I think it's quite powerful. And it's I mean, it's at the same time, it's voiceless, but it has so many voices inside, and actually is discussing all our fears, everything, what can we experience when you go in the nighttime to see the doctor and you're really afraid that you got the virus, and actually this is what you get from the other side. So these are just some of the activities that we really started to do. These are, you can see it here, there are pictures that people are sending to us and stories, how their life changed. Here you see a protecting mask. So someone did a mask, and actually she explained all the story about the mask and how she feels much more powerful now in the period of the virus. To finish, what we wanted to do is to become a museum which is active, it's still present, and it works in the service of the community. And this is how we also think the museums should, in this period, if they are able to help their communities. They should be a place where it's like a social arena where they can discuss what is going on, and actually they can also actively develop the collections that the museums will have for the future generations in order to show how the life in the period of the coronavirus was. Thank you. And I need to stop it, sorry.
Thank you very much, Kaya, and don't worry, it was all within the allotted time. And I can see more and more questions appearing on the question and answer, under the question and answer button, and in the chats as well. There are lots of encouraging and friendly comments. Our next speaker would be Teresine da Silva, who's head of collections at the Anne Frank Foundation and Anne Frank House in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Teresine, thank you for joining us, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Very nice that you're listening to us today. I will tell you something about a new educational project which accidentally coincides with the appearance of COVID-19. The Anne Frank House is closed due to Corona, like most museums in the world. And also for us, this is a major problem, especially because our museum is mainly depending on income from paying visitors. If these measures will ease, to keep 1.5 meter distance in our very small annex is almost impossible. So we are afraid it will take some time before we can open our doors again. But anyway, we will try to survive this. Although preparations have been made before the Corona crisis, a new Anne Frank video project has recently been launched, which unexpectedly ties in with certain developments in this Corona era. And I will show you a very short trailer about this video project.
Ik ben Anne Frank. Ik wil iets doen waardoor mensen me kunnen herinneren. Ik ben nu bezig met mijn videodagboek. Anne, ik vind het gewoon erg dat mensen al zo'n oordeel over me hebben. Dat ze me zo slecht vinden. Gewoon hoe ik ben geboren.
The starting point of this project is based on the observation that young people read less than they did in the past. They all watch videos on YouTube instead. To attract young people to the life story of Anne Frank, the Anne Frank House, together with a video production company, Every Media, developed an Anne Frank video diary, an online video series airing on YouTube and based on the diary of Anne Frank. The video diary follows Anne Frank from 29th March 1944 onwards. The format resembles a vlog. The video camera takes the place of the diary, and Anne is played by the 13-year-old girl Luna Cruz Perez. The story begins with Anne Frank. The story begins when Anne Frank is 14 years old and has been living in hiding for over 1.5 years, together with her family and 4 other people. Anne Frank films herself and the events in the secret annex, looks back on the time before they went into hiding and talks about the war and shares her deepest thoughts and feelings. The video diary ends on August 4, 1944, when Anne and the 7 other people from the secret annex are arrested. The strength of Anne's diary is that Anne Frank speaks to you directly and gives you a poignant glimpse into her life in the secret annex. The young actress Luna uses her camera to invite the viewers to connect with Anne in the same direct way. We can already conclude that this format is a great success among young people because we already have more than 3 million viewers all over the world in such a short time. The Anne Frank video diary consists of 15 episodes, and all characters, locations, and events in the series are based on the original diary of Anne Frank and on historical events. They deal with themes such as discrimination, scapegoating, making choices, and freedom. One of the many responses from a teacher is, "I think this is one of the coolest ideas I've ever seen. You're making Anne real to a generation of kids who relate to selfies and streaming. I hope, of course, that this would lead to them reading the diary of Anne Frank." We have been working on this project for 2 years, and it was planned to be launched on March 16 of this year. Exactly on that day, Corona broke through in the Netherlands and social life was shut down, and we felt that we had to postpone this release. But then countries in all parts of the world followed and went into the same lockdown. Articles in the media almost immediately appeared in which the lockdown situation, with its fear and isolation, was compared with Anne Frank's life in hiding. But is such a comparison acceptable? We know that our own experience are often the starting point for understanding others. If you are severely restricted in your freedom of movement, as you may currently be, this will make you think about people who were forced to live under similar circumstances. Of course, this does not mean that the background and the context from those days can be compared to our present situation. Anne Frank had to go into hiding for the sole reason that she was Jewish. Her persecution, life in hiding, and eventual death were the result of deliberate human actions. Still, you will read Anne Frank's diary with different eyes, and the current situation will give you a better understanding of certain extracts from her diary. Some aspects of the story may be even more relevant at a time when quarantine orders are in place around the world, because the present situation affords a small taste of what it means to be immobilized by historical circumstances. Well, all the videos are available in 5 different languages, and we have made teachers materials to use it also in schools, etc. So thank you for listening to me. This is what I wanted to tell you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Next speaker is Ophelia Leon, the chair of IC Memo on digital strategies. Ophelia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Cornelis, and thank you, everyone. It's really touching to see all of those comments and people all over the world joining us. When I asked Mofidul to speak about Bangladesh today, he said, Ophelia, I don't have the answers. But then he also said that perhaps at this point, asking the right questions may be more important than the answers themselves. And of course, I told him I'd rather have a crystal ball with the answers, but be that as it may, it was also the first question we received for the webinar. It was from Enas Karim, who asked about the role of museum educators at the time of coronavirus, which I think is more vital than ever. And the examples we've seen, and Kaya and Teresin talking about the giving the material to the teachers shows it. So we asked the question, can there be a shift from seeking answers to finding key questions that transform the way we see and respond to our educational challenges? And that's indeed a challenge in and of itself. We look at first some creative ways to reach our public, and I know that I sent this information to many of you by email already, but for others, I'd like to disseminate ICOM's published advice on how to achieve a greater online presence. It's available online, and we're showing it now, but could continue to, you can see it afterwards. As Cornelis said at the beginning, we will publish today's presentations on the IC Memo website, so you don't have to worry, because I'll be sharing a lot of the links and they'll be available there. But let's look at some examples of responses from museums other than memorials, which I found most inspiring. Can we see the slide with the museums like the Getty, who have challenged at home to recreate iconic artwork with household items? Well, anyway, you can go back to the links and see the amazing results of people recreating iconic artwork with household items. And this reminds me in 2017, when we celebrated the IC Memo conference in the US with ICAMT, and we had the opening reception at the Cincinnati Art Museum. And at the time, York Scribolite, who's the director of the Flosenberg Memorial, said to me that the visit to the Art Museum had been the most inspiring for him, because it gave him so many creative ideas. And we hope today's presentations will also do the same. The next link is Creating Public Spaces, and that is an online course dedicated to creation of digital exhibits, interactive map of digital museum activities, and a lot more. Now, 10 years ago, BBC Radio broadcast a series, World History and 100 Objects from the British Museum. And that's 100 stories tracking the history of mankind according to its museum collections. That attracted a record audience, which goes to show the power of taking our museums beyond our walls, which is exactly what Museo del Prado is doing by taking, and you can see it also on their website, taking us back to the beginning of the 20th century, when the Second Republic in Spain brought famous artworks from El Prado to small towns and villages all over so everyone could enjoy it. And at the time, local city halls were giving instructions on how to prepare for the coming exhibits, basically by draping the walls with white sheets, etc. Virtual tours. We see museums from Musée d'Orsay to the Louvre to all over sharing and offering free virtual tours of their museum, and this is something that we can all do. Now, if anyone is concerned with what will happen to the travel exhibit and how it will be affected and how to cope with this changing scenario, I urge you to please visit ICOM ICEE. It's the International Committee for Exhibitions and Exchange. They have a webinar coming up in 14th of May, I believe it is. You can register now. And then we move on to preparedness and risk management. And we know a crisis, if we're lucky to survive it, which we will be, and we are, is always an opportunity, and we're thankful for that. And it's always an opportunity to better prepare for the future. And this emergency, if nothing else, it has unfortunately brought to our attention the sometimes meager preparedness of our museums. And just to show as an example, I mean, everyone I'm sure knows about the Van Gogh painting, which is estimated at £5 million, which was stolen 3 weeks ago from the Singer-Laren Museum in the Netherlands, which was closed, like all other museums, due to coronavirus. And basically the thieves simply smashed the front glass door and helped themselves. Now, there is the International Committee for Museum Security, and we have their link up as well, ICOM ICMS. Please look them up if you need to. And for further info and preparedness, you can follow ICOM's newest standing committee, the Disaster Resilient Museums Committee, which is co-chaired by Diana Pardue from ICOM US. The American Alliance of Museums published a guide to deal with COVID-19. Also, the Australian Institute for the Conservation of Cultural Material has prepared a practice guide, which is endorsed by Blue Shield. And finally, we get to digital strategies, and we say the future is here because we have been talking up until 2 months ago about the need for museums to develop new digital strategies, only that now we've basically just fast forwarded to the future. And we all know that change is inevitable. So once again, this crisis has finally made us aware of the power of optimal digital communication in museums. Some people have adapted really quickly, others more slowly, but it's now an absolute must for museums to incorporate a digital strategy, but not as a separate, unrelated entity, but rather very much as part of a whole. And these are great new job opportunities we can offer. Basically, the four fundamental parts of a digital strategy are, as you see up on the screen, digital strategy manager, collections curator, interaction experience developer, and an online cultural community manager. And this takes us back to Iran's question at the beginning about the place of educational staff in these changing times. The work of a new digital staff needs to be absolutely enhanced with content and with the experience of existing museum professionals and its educational staff. And Project Musa has developed courses for museum digital strategies, which will be available online at MOOC. And just to wrap up, a reminder that the aims of IC Memo is to use knowledge in the interest of peace by fostering a responsible memory of history, furthering cultural cooperation and education. And I say we double our efforts so that the lesson driven from this crisis be greater need for cooperation and solidarity, shared resources, and common responsibility. We really must stay alert. Cornelis was citing some instances at the beginning, but we must assume our responsibility so that we don't fall prey of curtailing liberties in the name of safety. I leave you with a quote from Viktor Frankl, which I hope you can read on screen if we move to the last slide. Or I'll read to you. He says that freedom is in danger of degenerating into mere arbitrariness unless it is lived in terms of responsibleness. And he says that recommends that the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast be supplemented by a Statue of Responsibility on the West Coast. Thank you to Viktor Frankl. Thank you all. And as they say in Africa, Ubuntu. Thank you. Cornelis, back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ophelia. We have meanwhile received a number of questions, and I think we'll manage, or at least the panelists will try to manage to answer a number of them. There was one quite early when Louisa was speaking, and Louisa has already indicated that she would like to answer that. It's Louisa, it's the question about how you maintain your collections that may be fragile, and you indicated you were ready to answer that one.
Okay. Yes, even though there's this lockdown, before the complete lockdown, certain officers were allowed or were given permission to go to their offices and take care of things that needed to be taken care of. And that also applies to the museum. Certain level of officers, you know, senior officers from maybe level 14 up, you know, could go to the museum. So these people take care of when there's a necessity, when it's needed. I mean, bearing it in mind that they put in mind the precautionary measures. So, I mean, a couple or three of them could just go to the museum to take care of things. And that's the way it's been happening.
Mm-hmm. There is one question addressed to all the speakers, and in fact to all of us, and it's probably also one of the most difficult questions. But the question is, well, when do you realistically expect, and this is for the four speakers, when do you realistically expect that your museum will be able to reopen? Perhaps Louisa, right? Oh, yeah, I can see more Fidel. It's the toughest one, I suppose.
No.
Well, I think nobody knows for sure,
Right.
but we hope that by the end of May or maybe early June, maybe gradually the museums and educational institutions will be opened. And already we see that some discussion is going on about uh, some service outlets or other things. So with the educational institutions, the government has said that maybe not till September, but maybe with museums following the social distancing and other rules and with the safety measures, maybe not open in the real sense, but for targeted audience, for discussion, for seminars and other related with the new crisis and how to overcome it. I think some sort of activities will be able to start before we open the doors for the public.
Mhm. Well, thank you, Mofidul. Kaya, I saw you shake your head. And Mofidul says, well, perhaps September. Meanwhile, we could, on a limited basis, do something. What do you think?
I want to open it as soon as possible. I think that our community, our society needs us on so many levels. This pandemic is becoming more a social and a political problem from what it was a month ago. So actually, we also need to take care about these questions. Of course, I'm talking from a country where right now we are already discussing how to open the municipalities, because right now we cannot move from one municipality to another. And we did not expect, we did not had so many, the impact of the virus had not so much impact as it was in Italy and in Spain. But museums around us are opening. Slovenia is in the middle of Italy, Austria, and Croatia, and all the Minister of Culture already explained that in the next month they think that they are going step by step to open the museums. I'm totally for opening. Of course, it's not the same as it was before. But we need to start to do something. We need to be open for individual visits, maybe for families. We are not going to have guided tours for, I think, I don't know how many months, and no school programs and no workshops for children. That's a reality. But we can open the museums for individual visits, and we can open it for the community in order to do what we were open for, and this is to serve the community and to help.
Okay, thank you. Before asking Louisa for her guest, I just see in the chat that in Estonia, the open air museums and other general museums are going to be open sometime next week. Louisa, it's a question which probably is more about what we hope will happen than what we know will happen. What is your guess?
Sorry again, Cornelis, could you come with the question again?
Is the sound okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
No, the question to all the panelists was, when do you expect, if you have any expectations, to be able to reopen in total or
well, as we speak as of now, I really can't tell. But if anything in that line is going to happen, and it's going to be maybe sometime in May, because we're having, like the professionals in these things are saying, we don't know. I understand we really haven't reached our peak. That's in Nigeria. So, and the government is careful not to open up places, you know, so that people don't go back to where we started. So if anything is going to happen, it's going to be towards May. And before then, we're just, some places that we're having intermittent lockdowns, and that will start from next week.
Okay, thank you. And then perhaps finally, Teresine, you already explained a small building, 90% foreign visitors. You have hopes, no doubt, but any guess?
No, we are preparing ourselves for a reopening of the museum. It will take some time though. It depends also on the rules here in the Netherlands. To keep 1.5 meter distance is for such a small museum as we are difficult, but we are trying to be creative and thinking of new ways to open the museum for fewer visitors, for families. We have ordered a lot of plastic already and material to clean the hands. We have to think of a lot of different things to be able to open the museum. What also is important is, as long as traveling internationally is not possible, our museum, who normally have 90% of our visitors come from abroad, will have to be realistic. When we open the doors, we will not be able to invite a lot of people in the same time, and international traveling will be for a long time still a problem. So we will have to keep hope, and we are preparing ourselves and being creative, and that's it what we can do at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. There was another question asked by several people. The importance of the closeness of our memory communities.
I like to think that the end of coronavirus will bring greater attention to museums worldwide. Opening early is a risk, anything, not museums only, but just about anything. But I think it also recently, it was mentioned how the end of World War II, people took it as a sign when museums reopened, it was a sign of regained peace. And I'm hoping that this catches on, that there's actually this sense of look, this is what we missed, this is what we lost. We must take advantage, and it's greater attention be given to museums worldwide. But then I'm the eternal optimist, so, but I hope I'm right in this case. That whenever we do open, it's for the best.
This question was whether memorial museums, who are closed, so probably not so much bothered, but memorial sites, whether there is an increase noted of vandalism in those sites. And of course, Ophelia mentioned the theft of the Van Gogh. That's a different thing. But this is vandalism, or groups of people who are sort of frustrated and start taking it out on sites. Do any of you have any knowledge of this? Kaya, are you?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I was reading a lot what was going on in the other museums or in other countries, and I remember that ICOM Italy was the one who called on the government that they needed to take care of the museums and museums park because of vandalism, thieves, and all the other things that can happen. So surveillance, and yeah, the problem of surveillance is it's a huge one. But from my perspective in Slovenia, nothing like that happened. We have other problems. But just to sum up, I think, yes, our museum world is going to change. And we hope for the best that it's not going to change in a negative way. And more than social distancing, I'm always talking about physical distancing, because I want us, people from the museum, to really keep hugging one another, even if it is virtual. And I must say for myself that in the last month, I was much more connected to all my friends around the globe as I was in the months before. I already managed to use Zoom before, but actually there was this boom of Zooming, and yeah, we are connected. And I would say that we are much more connected as we were before. And if this is some of the positive things that are coming out of this period, it's a huge one. But at the same time, as all the others are writing and I'm reading, some museums will need to close. Some museums will not have enough staff. Some people will be left without a job. I'm happy that in my country for now this is not going to happen, because we are a national museum and we should be 100% funded by the state. But of course there are many problems. One of them is, are we still going to do European funding programs? How much the money is going to change?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and on the other
Mhm.
side, we are all together in this because there are no good practices from before, because actually this is something so new that we all have to learn from one from another. And the best thing that we can do is to keep on talking about our problems and to share it one with another and try to find good solutions.
Thank you very much, Kaya. Before giving the floor to Ophelia, is there any other point that the other speakers, the other three speakers, would like to say? And I know there's a lot of questions and everything together. Because if that's not the case, I'd like to thank the four of you very much. And it's certainly not going to be the last time we get together in this format. And then perhaps Ophelia would like to say a few more words as well. So you have
Thank you.
Ophelia.
Thank you, Cornelis. Like you, I too want to thank the speakers very much. Everything is an effort, and really thank you. But also, the commentaries are amazing. It's thank you all for joining us. People have joined us from Australia at 11 o'clock at night. It's now midnight. India, of course, the States, everywhere. It's just, and really, we could spend another hour talking just with the commentaries, which are very interesting. Just want to say that this year's ICMEMO ICTO conference in Yerevan is still scheduled to take place in October. We, like everyone else, are staying open. We don't know whether this will happen or not, but we want to thank the Armenian Genocide Museum, which is our host. And if, of course, if we can't bring it live and meet there, which would be ideal, we'll meet back here because the topics that we were addressing were already part of the program before the crisis hit. Also want to let you, well, first of all, wish everyone good health and much creativity. I hope you've gotten some ideas and have been inspired. Peace for everyone. And also want to say that we've had more participants than members, so thank you very much, ICOM, wherever you're coming from. And if you're not yet ICOM or ICMEMO members, please do join. It's a great big family and we're together. We'll hope you also join us, want to say, and if you could, Massimiliano, please show the last slide so that people remember, yeah, we'll have a second take. We'll have another webinar coming up on May 15th at the same time, 15 hours in Paris, 9 a.m. in New York. And we're very happy to announce, we just confirmed that Barbara Kirschenblatt-Gimblet, who's advisor to the director of Poland Museum of the History of Polish Jews, and which most of you know already, will be our keynote speaker. The subject we're working on, it's gain solidarity or loss of liberties, how our museums might address changes wrought by the virus. This is all. We thank you very, very much and hope to see you soon again.